What happens when two banking giants consider merging? Picture it. BBVA, a colossal Spanish bank, makes an all-share offer to Sabadell, another banking powerhouse. The proposition is no small potatoes. We're talking about a deal that was worth around 12 billion euros when announced. The intricacies of the offer are fascinating. BBVA proposed offering one newly issued share for every 4.83 Sabadell shares. This is a premium of 30% over Sabadell's closing price on April 29th. The aim? To form one of the largest lenders in the Eurozone by market value. A lofty goal indeed. But wait, there's a twist. This isn't the first time these two Spanish titans have danced this dance. They called off previous merger talks in November 2020 because they couldn't see eye to eye on terms. Now BBVA's back with a renewed proposal, and Sabadell's board is playing it close to the vest. They've brought in the big guns, investment banking advisors Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs, to evaluate their options. As for Sabadell's response to the proposal, they're keeping mum. No comment on the meeting or its possible outcome. But their actions speak volumes. By lining up professional advisors, they're clearly intending to give this offer the serious consideration it deserves. While Sabadell remains silent on the meeting's possible outcome, it did establish its intentions to assess the offer carefully. As the board deliberates, the world waits. The board members of Sabadell are at a crossroads. They could choose to formally enter into talks with BBVA, setting the stage for a possible merger. They could demand better terms, entering into a negotiation that could reshape the landscape of the deal. Or they could reject the proposal outright, keeping Sabadell independent and leaving BBVA to consider other options. The decision is not an easy one, and it could come as early as today, or it could take a little longer. The board members have a lot to consider, and they want to make sure they're making the best decision for Sabadell and its shareholders. Speaking of shareholders, they're another crucial part of this equation. If the proposed deal goes through, Sabadell shareholders would receive a 16% stake in the combined group. This would give them a significant say in the future direction of the new entity and could potentially lead to significant returns in the future. But this isn't a guaranteed win for shareholders. The shares are currently well below the premium price, and the market isn't taking the proposed deal for granted. There's a gap between the offer and the current share price of Sabadell, which could mean that investors are not yet convinced that the merger is the best move. The decision of the board could have wide-reaching implications, not just for Sabadell and BBVA, but for the entire financial sector. A merger between these two banks could change the landscape of banking in Spain and beyond, creating a new power player in the industry. There's a lot riding on this decision, and the world is watching closely. Will Sabadell and BBVA merge to form one of the largest lenders in the Eurozone? Or will Sabadell remain independent, charting its own course in the financial world? With the shares still well below the premium price, the market remains uncertain about the deal's success. The market, it seems, has its doubts. As the news of the proposed merger between BBVA and Sabadell trickled out, the market's reaction was somewhat mixed. Sabadell shares experienced a slight uptick, rising by a marginal 0.3% to close at 1.8915 euros. On the other hand, BBVA shares took a minor hit, dipping by 0.6% to settle at 9.79 euros. This fluctuation, however subtle, paints a picture of a market trying to make sense of this potentially game-changing merger. Nuria Alvarez, an analyst at Madrid-based broker Renta4, offered a keen observation on the market's uncertainty. She noted, "The market is not taking for granted that the proposed deal will go ahead, and that's why we see a gap between the offer and current share price of Sabadell. Essentially, the market is hedging its bets." The slight rise in Sabadell's shares indicates a glimmer of optimism, a hope that the merger could indeed go through and bring about a beneficial change for the bank. Conversely, the dip in BBVA's shares could be read as a hint of skepticism, a sign that investors are unsure whether the merger will indeed materialize or yield the promised benefits. This delicate dance of numbers, this ebb and flow of prices, underscores the high stakes at play here. The market's reaction serves as a barometer of sorts, gauging the potential success or failure of this merger. It's a clear sign that all eyes are on the board members of both banks as they weigh their options and make their decisions. As the market holds its breath, the decisions of the board members could have significant repercussions. And so, as we wait to see how this all unfolds, one thing is for sure. The world of finance is anything but dull. Stay tuned as we continue to dissect this fascinating saga. A merger is more than just a financial transaction. It's a blending of cultures, values, and yes, even boardrooms. In the case of Sabadell and BBVA, this blending would entail substantial changes to the composition of the board of directors. Under BBVA's proposal, 3 members of Sabadell's board would find new seats at BBVA's boardroom table, serving as non-executive directors. Among them, one would shoulder the additional responsibility of acting as one of the vice chairs of BBVA's board. This reshuffling would not only merge 2 banking giants, but would also bring together a diverse range of perspectives, potentially enriching decision-making and strategic planning. Now, let's not forget about Sabadell's biggest shareholders. These are primarily institutional investors with substantial stakes in the bank. For instance, BlackRock with a 3.62% stake, FinTech Europe with a 3.105% stake, and Dimensional Fund Advisors with a 3.011% holding. Even the Mexican independent non-executive board member David Martinez Guzman holds a solid 3.495%. These shareholders, with their significant holdings, may exert considerable influence on the outcome of the proposed merger. Their vote could tilt the balance towards acceptance or rejection of BBVA's offer, and their views will undoubtedly be a key factor in the board's decision-making process. In essence, a merger of this magnitude would not only create a banking behemoth, but also significantly transform the dynamics within the boardroom. It would mean a new blend of voices, reshaped alliances, and perhaps a shift in the strategic direction of the combined entity. The merger could significantly alter the balance of power in the boardroom. A merger of this magnitude has far-reaching implications. This isn't simply a matter of 2 banks joining forces, but rather, it's about creating a financial titan with over 1 trillion euros in total assets. That's a number so large, it's almost hard to comprehend, but it's the reality of the potential Sabadell and BBVA merger. The rationale behind such a colossal merger is multifaceted. On one hand, there's the allure of cost savings. BBVA has estimated that a merger with Sabadell could generate savings of around 850 million euros. That's a significant sum that could help strengthen the financial foundation of the merged entity. But it's not just about cost savings. In the current banking landscape, size does matter. Scaling up business operations can provide a much-needed revenue boost, especially as the high interest rates that once bolstered banks' bottom lines are fading. A larger scale means a wider reach, more resources, and ultimately, more opportunities to generate revenue. However, it's worth noting that such mergers aren't a simple affair. They're subject to a complex web of regulations and policies, both domestically and across borders. Bank of Spain Governor Pablo Hernández de Cos recently mentioned that cross-border bank mergers in the EU won't take off until the bloc completes its European banking union first. He may not be optimistic about cross-border deals at present, but he remains hopeful for change in the future. As we consider these factors, we begin to see the potential implications of the Sabadell and BBVA merger. It's not just about 2 banks coming together, but rather, it's about the reshaping of the banking landscape. As the banking world watches, the potential merger could signal a shift in BBVA's focus away from developing economies and towards its domestic market.